Well, I believe we are live. You should be tuning in now and watching this, whether you are watching it live or you are watching on the replay. We're so glad to have you here on the Better Agency YouTube channel. I am joined today by a very special guest, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. Really excited for today's show. We do this once a month. It's called Agency Tactics, where we try to dive in and talk talk about a lot of the tactics and a lot of things. We bring on specialists from other companies or people who are really good at a particular thing, and we really try to go deep. A lot of content. It's very easy to kind of go a mile wide and an inch deep. We want to kind of just keep it really focused in on one particular tactic or just a couple small tactics and just go as deep as we can. Of course, we do this live, so we give you the opportunity to ask questions, your thoughts, things that bubble up during the conversation that we want to try to provide answers to, and that our guests can provide answers to. So we're going to have a time for that. Go ahead and utilize the chat feature if you have something that you do want to discuss that pops up, whether it's a question or a talking point. And just a few housekeeping notes. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, hit the bell notification, and tune in live March 16th for Agency Success Live. It's going to be a live stream that we do every single week here on the Better Agency YouTube channel. There's no agenda other than to talk about the things that really matter to agency success, whether it is leadership, hiring, marketing, strategy, sales. We'll bring on guests from time to time to kind of give talking points on that. But I wanted to do something that was different than a traditional podcast, and I wanted to have a live show. So that's what Agency Success Live is. It gives you, the audience, the ability to tune in live and to do that. I'll put a registration link in the comments some point during the show. Make sure you register for that so you can join us on Zoom, and then we will stream that to our channel. So if you want to watch the replay, you can do that. And then also make sure if you are coming to the Better Conference that you mark your calendar. Make sure you get in early. David Watson, our guest, will be there as well as many others. So we're excited for that. The event is sold out. I wish we could sell more tickets, but the venue has put a cap on it. We can't fit any more without the fire marshal getting involved. So the Better Conference is our second conference. We hope next year to make it bigger and better with more people, but that's where we're at today. And also, lastly, I'll say make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I already mentioned that, but we'll go ahead and hit that again. Today, joined by David Watson from RiskAdvisor. What's going on, David?
Hey, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. I know you're doing some really cool stuff with RiskAdvisor, and some folks might not be too familiar with what that is. And we'll hit on some of that. But I know the topic, the tactic that we're going to discuss today is really getting virtual assistants really focused and honed in on the personal lines quoting process. So if you could maybe just take a few moments, give the group here a little bit of an intro, your background, a little bit of the origin story from your insurance background, and tell us a little bit about RiskAdvisor.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to doing what I do with RiskAdvisor, I'm also a partner at a independent agency in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just out as part of Charleston, and been a part of that group for the last 4 years. And before that was had started my own agency and merged in with them. But we have been using virtual assistants at the Mappus agency for the past 5 years. So it's definitely something that's really part of our lives. We're utilizing them every single day. They're part of our team. But it is definitely something that we're looking forward to helping a lot of agencies with. When it comes down to how we got started, so I don't even know, I keep saying this every time I tell the story, but I don't know if I've actually told the story to him, but Adam Zerwinski was doing a breakout at Innovation. I'm pretty sure Phoenix, yes. And it was how to use Google Forms to create memes for your Facebook page and social interaction and things like that. And this was back in January 2019. And when he started doing that, it just kind of got me thinking about our processes. Funny enough, with using virtual assistants, and I was like, okay, if you can use Google Forms to make a meme, then you should be able to use Google Forms to send information to virtual assistants. And it ended up being that it took me 15 different form makers to try to figure out the best one. But RiskAdvisor actually started out in our agency on Jotform, which I know a lot of y'all use. I remember the post coming up on about 2 years ago where I posted about it, where I said I was spend about 40 to 60 hours. The more I think about that, it's probably close to 80 hours that I spent building this out on Jotform. And our agency ended up putting about 15 to 1,800 submissions through it within the next year, and that's where RiskAdvisor really came from, was the thought that, hey, this is really helping our workflow. It helped me personally the last 2 years, right? Over $1 million of premium each year, and I know that it's helped our team as well. And excited to talk a little bit more about it here.
Well, I know that VAs are certainly all the rage right now. It feels like every other day a new virtual assistant company is coming to the insurance space, and it must be a very very lucrative business, very very good business. But it's also because the demand is there. Now, with that being
Yep.
said, like anything else, when something new kind of comes into the marketplace, it's kind of transformative. A lot of stuff can go wrong really fast, whether from a workflow standpoint or from a processes standpoint. You don't know until you go through it. You just don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
Uh, Talk about some of the hurdles that you've seen as you guys have utilized VAs, or you've seen other people utilize VAs. What are some of the common stumbling blocks that a lot of people have when it comes to using VAs, especially on the quoting side?
Yeah. So the issue that we had when we onboarded one VA company, who they do great things and they have great processes. It was more of an issue of entirely an issue of ours with Mappus, and what it came down to was the process. People expect to onboard VAs, and they expect their agency processes that are not written down, not spoken, and no one follows, to be able to be exactly translated to a VA overnight. And what the biggest issue that we came into when we onboarded one was we didn't know how to tell them to do what we just knew how to do.
Isn't it amazing that as you're talking, I feel like this is true. It's almost as if a lot of agency owners, when they hire VAs, they expect more out of a virtual assistant working in another country than they do from their licensed producer that they're interviewing that has 20 years of experience. It's like they just bring them in and yeah, just here you go, guys, just make my stuff work. So
Yep.
you got to have some sort of detailed process, and process is really, really critical. I mean, you think about the best businesses in the world, they have really good detailed outline processes. And as annoying as they might be, if you were an employee, then like, oh, we've got to go through another training on this. There's a reason why they do that, because the process
100%.
is critically important. I can go to Starbucks here in Phoenix, Arizona, and it'll be the exact same experience as if I went to one in Dubai. Like that's just the way that they do that, because it has to be streamlined, because you have all these different failure points. And the same has to be true when you hire a virtual assistant. You have to have things in place that are going to make their workflow easy and efficient and easy to understand and digest, because you have to just assume that people who are coming into your agency, you might be the first agency they've ever worked in. A lot of these
Yep.
places recruit virtual assistants like crazy. Now it can be very, very successful. And I've seen a lot of, just like you, I've seen a lot of people kind of stumble out of the gate with virtual assistants. I've seen a lot of people do really, really well and have really, really good processes in place. But talk about some of the processes that you think are critical that they have to start really dialing in if they're going to be successful. We'll go deeper into the specifics, but if you had to break things out into pillars and say like, they need to be good at this, you need to have a process for that, and this, that, and the other, what would you say is the path of least resistance there?
The first step is you've got to collect good data. I know data is the same way that VA is a buzzword. Data is a huge buzzword nowadays, and it should be, because it's so important. One of the things that you struggle with, or people will struggle with using VAs, is they collect some data, partial data, and they expect a certain level of going and finding out information, whether it be on Zillow or property records or things like that, which you can definitely train a VA to do, but most of the times they're not going to be ready to do that day one. And so the first problem is collecting the data, which is one of the first things that we set out to do. The second piece is organizing it in a way that is repeatable but also understandable. So When it comes time to send that data over to a VA asking for a quote and telling them the specifics of it, is putting it in a way that they're going to see it every single time. I know even when we were having success with our VA, somebody in our agency might be sending it over via a fillable PDF that we had. Someone might be sending it over with, hey, here is the current policies and pictures of the driver's license, go quote it, without even telling them
Here's a
what to quote.
napkin.
Yeah, exactly. Or the chicken scratch,
Right.
whatever it might be. And so the second piece is getting it over to them in a way that they're going to be able to understand it every single time, and know exactly what you're looking for. And then the third piece is getting it over in the exact, not just the data in the same way, but requesting the quotes in the same way. So that way they know exactly where to look. They know exactly what information, what carriers to go quote, things like that.
Hmm. Do you find that it varies from location to location, from personal lines account to personal lines account? Do you feel like the level of detail is the same on a standard lines, auto and home, two cars, $400,000 in coverage, as it is on? I know where you guys are at. You guys are in South Carolina, so we're writing more coastal properties or more
Yep.
E&S even. Do you find that the process is very similar, or do you find that one it's overkill on one, it's not enough on another? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So when we set out and started building Risk Advisor, I made an assumption, and we all know what happens when you make an assumption, that it was very similar, and the process could be very easy, just to have a bunch of agencies just fall into the same process, and that's just not the case. There is a complete difference between what we do on the coast and what people in Florida do, what people in Texas do, California, so on and so on. And one of the things that you'll see in our forums is there's so much conditional logic that's based around how questions are answered, how what's important to an agent to collect, and why they collect it versus the need for it, and getting that information into that organized format that we were speaking about.
I'm going to ask you a question, because I feel I have an opinion, but I want to ask a question that I feel might be on the mind of somebody else who might be
Yep,
watching this. So it's somewhat of a pushback question, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
absolutely.
Why does this matter? Why is this important? Why should I change what I'm doing when I could just go into my Raider and it has pre-fill on it, and I could just plug in some stuff and away we go? Like,
Yeah,
why do I need additional steps?
yeah. So that's definitely something that we hear on demos and feedback from our users. And the reason why it matters is because when you look at the Easy Leaks, you look at the PL Raiders, you look at the Turbo Raiders, so on and so on. The way that those are set up is it's not around a conversation. It's around a
Order taking.
order taking. And as soon as you become an order taker, all you can compete on is price. And as soon as you compete on price, if you're $2 a higher a month, then you've lost. Um, Go ahead.
And I was gonna say that's an excellent point, because one thing I hear quite a bit, I know there's agents on this who are watching this, and you've heard this yourself, is people always hate the idea of insurance feeling like personalized insurance, feeling like it's a commodity and
Yep.
feeling like it's just a race to the bottom. But if you continue to do things that commodity businesses do, you're going to continue to be treated like a commodity, and there has to be a differentiation that you're going to pull yourself out of that way of thinking. And if you really want to be an advisor and less of an order taker, then you have to differentiate in the way that your process is built out. And the process isn't going to be for every customer at all. Like, there'll be
Yep.
some customers who are just like, dude, I just want to quote, and they're
Yep.
almost disqualifying themselves. They're
Yep.
almost telling you in a way, I don't want, you don't want to do business with me. But the customers that see value in this, they're likely not getting any of this from their current provider, and they've never thought about it in this way. So there's a really an interesting window of time here where, as the advisor, you have the ability to go into a consultative selling discussion based around the thing and the needs that they have, and that's why I think it's important, whether you're selling insurance on a 1991 Tercel, or if you're selling insurance on a 2022 Tesla with a $2 million coverage A home, it matters. And the ones that identify that as important to customers, those are going to be the ones that you really, really want as clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of sidebar for a second. One of the things that we do when it comes time to presenting to clients is we do the quote vids through Chris Langille's Advisor Evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people are using different tools for the quote videos, and I highly recommend everybody do quote vids in whatever capacity makes sense for you. But if you try to, on the front end, if you try to just make it on and off the phone as quick as possible, or hey, here's questions in my email, just get me these details as quickly as possible, or even just a form that looks like the Lemonades or the Progressives, the client facing forms that way. If you try to do that on the front end, but then you spend the time on the back end to then try to turn the conversation to being a trusted advisor, then you set yourself up for failure. You're doing the work on the back end, but you haven't positioned yourself on the front end as setting yourself up for success. And I had a client who was quoting their home on Sullivan's Island, $2 million RCV, and was taking them through this process. And he literally told me at the end of the conversation, David, you've asked questions that nobody's ever asked me before. It's very obvious that you know what you're talking about, and you've got my business. I'm going to tell the other 3 agents that I was had calls scheduled that I'm not going moving forward with them. And one of them was this current agent. And the first quote that we got together on was out of his price range on what he was looking for, but I earned the opportunity to come back and work with him instead of just, oh, you're too expensive, so I'm just going to cut you out of the conversation. And that's something that we see more and more with how these are positioned.
So talk to me about how this process works with a virtual assistant.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's tell you what, let's go ahead and jump into that slideshow real quick that I got. Sure. Let's see, let me find the right screen. There we go. So we kind of were talking about this a little bit earlier on the process, but Rob Lopez, who is with Viva Virtual Assistant, says less than 5% of all agencies we work with have taken the time to document their agency processes. As a result, 90% of agencies are flying blind when it comes to working with VAs. RiskAdvisor makes the agency relationship with a VA much more efficient, and then thus helps create long-term scalability for the agency. So what we're helping with is that new business and renewal process when it comes to working with virtual assistants. And that is exactly what we're here for when we can do that, whether you're using virtual assistants or not. But if you are or have an idea that you want to work with virtual assistants, then it's really going to be a no-brainer. So what this process kind of looks like is you're capturing the risk profile. You're guiding the client through a comprehensive risk assessment using our forms. I mentioned earlier that they're smart forms, they're conditional logic. So if anyone's worked with a jot form or gravity form or whoever, and they get into the weeds of if, then, that, and all that fun stuff, we've got it built out really, really well.
So just as a pause, because there might be some people who aren't familiar with that. So it is, if home has shake roof, then ask this question. If if household has 16-year-old driver, then ask this question. Right? It's if they answer this way, then I want you to ask this way. And if they don't answer this way, then that question never comes up. It's just a way of formatting it so where it's really trying to dig deeper on things that you're trying to get from the customer.
Dig deeper only when it's important to do that.
It's necessary.
It's necessary. That way you're not spending time skipping 5-6 questions that are not relevant. But yeah, as soon as you do this, you have the option to click and send it straight over to your virtual assistant. So I'll show you that process a little bit deeper down the road. But then quote accurately. We talked about how virtual assistants, they can be great resources to your team, but they're only as good as the information and data that you send over to them.
Sure.
When it comes to emailing that information over to the virtual assistant, this is a sample email of what a virtual assistant, whoever you use, what they're receiving. So you've got, please quote the attached home risk with the following carriers, and you've got the list of carriers for them to go work with. So that way it makes it extremely easy. There's no guessing. There's documentation saying, hey, I requested these quotes, all that. You got the ability to add, so please quote with and without earthquake. That's something that we commonly use. So that way they're doing it. When you need those quotes back, information on who submitted this. And one thing we do is we have our VA set up in Slack. So if there are any questions that pop up or any concerns that pop up, they know exactly how to reach us.
That's all customizable. So if anybody who they can do that.
Yep, absolutely. So any of this can fit exactly with how your agency currently operates. We obviously start with the template that we've kind of had success with, but that is completely customizable to you and your agency.
Gotcha.
These are the PDFs that are sent out. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier was the importance of structuring this information in an extremely organized and repeatable way. So this is a perfect example. So the applicant's information. So there's only one applicant right now, but if there's a co-applicant, you would see this information here.
And this is the PDF that goes to the VA. Is this customer facing?
No, well, we do have some people who actually send this out as part of the DocuSign process.
But the intention is that it's internal facing, correct?
Exactly. But yeah, so if there was a co-applicant that was filled in, this information would be filled in just the same right here. But one thing that was really important to us when we were building this out is not creating any room for confusion. So with an issue that we had with our PDFs, when we were just doing fillable PDFs or you could write in, is if there was a question there that 9 times out of 10 is answered, it would, in the one time that we left it blank, they were expecting it to be answered. So they would always ask us every single time, hey, why is this blank? Well, go ahead.
No, I have a question for when you go ahead and finish your point there.
Yeah. So if you had this all blank here, this is just an example that it's throughout the forms, but the whole point here is if it's not relevant, if it's not answered, it's not shown. So that way it doesn't create any gaps or areas for confusion.
Is this something that there's a lot of information on this?
Yeah.
Who answers these questions? Are these questions that are asked and customer answers and the producer puts in? Is this a form that you send to a customer and the customer fills out this information? How does all this get filled out so that the VA has it and can start going to work on it?
Yeah, so at this point, our forms are completely agency facing. One thing that was really important to us from the get-go was giving the tools to compete with those direct consumer carriers. And we do see that there's a value in client-facing forms. We'll eventually add those, but what we really wanted to focus on was giving the agency and the producers and the service staff, whether they've been writing insurance for 2 days or 20 years, the questions to ask. So this is, and definitely can show this to y'all in a moment, but this is a agency-facing form where some of the information's pre-filled from data lookup. Some of it is like a perfect example is this dwelling coverage. If you put in 500,000, a lot of the calculations for B, C, D all happen on their own. So that way you're only putting in information once. But there is some that data lookup on the front end. But again, it's one of those things where if like this exposure section, if all these questions are no, then there's nothing to fill out, and it's not going to show those there.
So it almost works a form, but almost could you make the argument that it's also a front end script?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely a piece of it where a lot of these questions that would need to be asked to the client are actually, instead of it just being purchase purchase date, it's framed as what is the purchase date. So that way, if you've got somebody who is newer to insurance, or newer to your agency, and they're going throughout this process and they kind of get stuck, they can just look at which question they're on and repeat the question back to the client.
Gotcha. So it's agency facing. You ask the questions, you get the information as a producer, and this is what you hand off to your VA and say, okay, go and put this into the rater, go and shop this, go and bring back the proposals to me.
100%.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, so this is just an example of our umbrella form that we kind of do something really cool. And this is a part of that risk advisor, trusted advisor relationship where instead of just cross-selling or trying to cross-sell $1 million umbrella and they coming back and say, why do I need this? And just say, oh yeah, we quote $1 million for everybody. A part of our umbrella form is actually calculating the estimated liability risk for a client. And we look at the gross annual income, the estimated net worth, and we run this formula in the background that gives us a good estimate. Obviously, each state's a little bit different, each person's a little bit different, but it gives you a talking point to where if that number comes back at 4.5 million and you propose a $5 million umbrella, that you have data to back up that conversation instead of it just, yeah, I mean, you're buying an expensive house, you got nice cars, I think you need $5 million. Or someone who has a lot of money and only is buying a $300,000 house, but just because they live below their means, but they've got a lot of money wrapped up elsewhere, you have the ability to figure that out based on the questions that we're asking.
Is there a way to templatize this to where if you know you're working, can you? I know this is somewhat true in a lot of raters, so maybe it's redundant and unnecessary, but can any of these presets be made on the front end to where it just defaults to certain answers unless changed?
Yeah, so we do have some of the lesser asked.
I don't know that that's a good idea, by the way. I'm just talking because you may or may not want that, but
yeah. Yeah, so we do have some questions that aren't as common, or if they're answered one way 9 out of 10 times, we've got them defaulted. But when it comes to an individual agency at this point, that's not something we have when you can, as the admin, set it up. But that is definitely something that is sooner rather than later, because each agency is run differently and each agency places priorities on different things.
Yep. Okay.
And then one thing I did want to kind of point to is that partnership with Better Agency, where love to down the road when it makes sense for everybody involved to have that direct integration. But right now, because of how forward thinking that y'all were and how important it was to us on the front end with Zapier, anything that is answered in RiskAdvisor is available to be sent to Better Agency via Zapier. So all your applicant, co-applicant information, all your property data, all your drivers, vehicles, income, and net worth. So that way, if you've got, you can filter it. Oh, this person's net worth is 500,000. Let's talk about this type of life insurance through a campaign that y'all got. Things like that. But yeah, so that's a piece of it. I don't know where you want to take it from here. If we want to,
do you have any other direct integrations? I might as well feel free to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. So the direct integrations that we've got right now are with EasyLinks. So whether you're just using the rater or the AMS, which if you're using the AMS, I think you should talk to somebody else on this call. But when it comes down to EasyLinks, as soon as you hit submit and you're got that connection ready to go, all the information is ready to go and inside of EasyLinks. And if you know EasyLinks, then you know how important it is to have the green check marks on all the different columns or all the different sections. And being an independent agent myself, knowing how frustrating it is that have your producer put all this information in one system and then go to another system and there be things missing. We spent so much time making sure that when that information is submitted, that the only thing you have to do is answer which carriers inside of EasyLinks you want to rate with, and those carrier specific questions, which can be handled a lot by templates. The other direct integration that we have right now is with a property data lookup called Estated to help with the quoting process for home insurance.
Very cool. So I want to make sure I have this right. So the reason why this is so helpful to a virtual assistant is it takes out a lot of the second guessing, and it takes out the, as you said in there, if you have questions, reach me in Slack. It takes out probably a lot of the need for a lot of that, unless there's specific preference questions. But a lot of it is to help set up your virtual assistants in a way that they're going to win, because they
Yep.
don't have to act from a place of confusion. They're acting from a place of confidence. They get the documentation. It really shortens the learning curve for them, because now it's really it's a lot of them have been trained through their own experience, or with these companies, to be very good at data entry, and so
Yep.
it's giving them the data that they have to then do the other thing. So whether you have them then put together the proposal in a PDF, or in a video form, or whatever the case might be, it sets you up as the producer, so you're not having to do this. I think this is really the benefit. And this is why you have a virtual assistant. Is I have a
Yep.
virtual assistant so that I don't have to go do all that stuff. So that I
Yep.
don't have to go into the Raider and do all the shopping. I could just focus, and if I'm in an agency that has a different sales process, where I'm trying to hit the phones, I'm trying to hit my list, I'm trying to hit whoever, it allows me to kind of systematically do that without having to stop that part of my brain to then go into the computer and do a quote and then send it out. I could just get all this information, be the consultant that I want, be the advisor that I want, have my virtual assistant do the work on the back end, and then I just come back with the. It's like dad that shows up every 6 months, and when he does, he treats you like Santa Claus because he just brings you gifts. That's what it's like. It makes you look good, because you're not having to do all that nonsense, and you can probably be a little quicker with your workflows.
100%. I say this every single time that it comes up when it comes to working with virtual assistants. There is no reason to be paying your staff to be doing $10 to $12 an hour task, especially if it's a producer who, if they're doing really well and they're making $100,000 plus a year, it just doesn't make sense for them to be doing these tasks. And
Well, you
what
should
this
want your producers making more money, because
exactly
when the producer makes more money, the agency makes more money. And so
100%.
you need to give them the tools that they need. And this is great, because I think a lot of times we're always talking to agency owners.
Yep.
But I think this is great for producers. This is great specifically for the staff. And if you're an owner operator, and that you're the owner or the principal and you're doing this allows you to probably start to think about different layers that you can think about. If you want to do something else, where you want to maybe kind of hire your sales replacement, it allows you to have the tools and the stuff in place to where you can start to maybe even start to think about that process.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, let's see here. You want me to jump in and show a high level overview of the system?
sure, might as well. If you guys have questions for David, go ahead and put them in the chat here, and I'll interrupt him, because he'll be looking at his screen. So go ahead and put those
Cool.
in, and I'll interrupt him with some questions that you guys have.
Awesome. And let's see here. Cool. So just jumped in. Should see client profile for Alejandro here. And what I want to do real quick is just kind of show a home quote. Auto is pretty straightforward and gives you a good idea. But what I'll do is show it from the renewal piece. And I know that's not something that we talked a ton about, but it's a feature that is important to us. And I wanted to point out is with RiskAdvisor, what you've got the ability to do is when it comes time to obviously you're putting this in as new business, but when it comes time to quote a renewal, because we're all seeing it all across the country with crazy rate increases, and it's becoming more a part of the process where you're having to shop at renewal. All you need to do inside of RiskAdvisor is pull that client up and hit this create renewal button. And what that's going to do is for your service staff, what used to take 20, 30 minutes to find applications in your agency management system, find whether it be in a text or email or wherever this information might be, it pulls that together. And one of the things that one of the few questions you actually have to ask again or answer again is, okay, what's this effective date? So that way you can go back through here. But just kind of give you an idea of some of this conditional logic, trying to keep this on a super high level for us. So don't get into the weeds of things, because we could go for hours on just our conditional logic. is this question: is this a new purchase? So if you say yes, it's going to ask about the estimated move-in date. With how crazy the real estate market is right now, it's much more common for people to be saying, oh, yeah, we're doing a rent back, or we're not moving in for 45 or 60 days, but we just needed to get the house under contract because it's what we liked, or something like that. So it's gathering that underwriting information on the front end to make sure that you're not going to have a vacancy clause pop up or something like that. But if it's not a new purchase, you want to find out who the current carrier is. You want to find out when it expires. If it's less than 5 years they've been at that address, gathering that prior address for the clean insurance score pool. Things like that are give you kind of an idea of what we're doing when it comes down to that conditional logic. Renting the homes to others is something that pops up, but to kind of keep it on par with what we were really here for is the VA relationship. So you're gathering all this information, all this underwriting information, but it's coming time to show them and tell them, hey, this is the coverage that I need. So you get in here to the dwelling coverage. Let's just change this. We've seen prices continue to go up, so now we need $535,000. Well, this one's got a detached garage. So instead of, I'm going to make fun of myself here for a minute, but when it comes down to like these percentages, I'm the guy that always has to have, if I want 2%, I want 2%. I'm not rounding. And really, a part of that also goes to the VAs. Most of your carriers, they're not selling based on a flat other structures or a flat personal property where you can select whatever you're wanting. It's based on a percentage. So if you say 10,000, you would get a Slack message. Well, I can only go to 10,700 or 16,000. Well, what we've done is built that right into here where, okay, if I need 10%, because of a detached garage, this person's a little bit of a hoarder. Let's get 75% personal property, and we only need 10% of loss of use. All you have to do is click a couple buttons instead of pulling out your calculator like me and making sure it's exactly what you want it to be. You've got your coverages, you've got your additional endorsements. One of the things that every sales trainer will tell you is the more lines of business that you write on the front end, the stickier that business is going to be. So if you've got the ability to ask about a personal articles floater, we've got all these different types of coverages that you can add on here right as you're going through this process. Some of these are underwriting questions, but a lot of these are also questions when it comes down to cross-sell opportunities. Does the named insured own any other properties? Okay, well, let's, I've got a rental property down the street, or I've got a schedule of 10. Oh, well, let's get that information. That way we can go into those. Recreational vehicles. You got nonprofit board of directors if you want to go after that business. Own a business is another one where you can go after that. But I mentioned the umbrella piece of it. It's here's where we're talking about the estimated liability risk. So let's say this person, their gross annual income is $195,000 and their net worth is $750,000. Down here, you saw this estimated liability risk update where it's automatically calculated in that based on the information that they're giving you. The way you can make it, give them informed, guide them through a conversation on this, making it easy to do that cross sell. The review and send page is where you give some of the basic information. So this automatically defaulted to 24 hours from when you submitted this. If you need it back sooner, you can update this to, let's say I need this back by 4:30 this afternoon. So that way, again, you're setting the proper expectations with your VA. So let's say we need to send this to our virtual assistant. So I want this quoted with auto owners, Heritage, Lighthouse, Progressive, and State Auto on the home, and Bass, Johnson & Johnson, and Orion on the other home. So what you see is two separate lists. I kind of glazed over that. So funny enough, Mathis uses PL rating, so we don't have that direct integration out as of yet. But this is where you would tell them, hey, these are the carriers inside of PL rating that I want you to quote. And then a separate list, since we're coastal, we have a bunch of regional carriers or coastal specific carriers that don't do business with the raters. So this is how you have all these different markets ready to go. And honestly, it helps me
Probably
a lot.
great for supplemental forms and accord forms.
It definitely can help with that. But it also just reminds me with how quick markets are changing. It reminds me of who all we do business with, so that way I know which markets to kind of go after. You've got your virtual assistant notes. You can also send it to personal line wholesale brokers if you want to do that. If you want to send it to Easy Links, you can do that very quickly right here as well. Another piece that I didn't talk about before, they don't need my headshot, but let's go ahead and upload that headshot so I can show you this feature. So if you upload a file, it's going to give you this here where you can send it to your virtual assistant. So whether it's an inspection or elevation certificate or anything else that could be associated with this risk, you just upload it here and you're able to send it to your virtual assistant. A lot of those documents aren't necessarily things that I want them digging through, but part of our instructions in our email is attach all documents in this email to our management system. So that way the producer, who more times than not is going to forget about attaching documents to the management system.
No, you don't.
That way that they're already there. And when you create a renewal next year, those documents are already associated. So that way, if it was forgot to put with the management system, or you just don't want to spend time going to find it, you've got access to them right here.
Now I know I was even thinking about, should I even bring this point up, because I know I know RiskAdvisor is relatively a young company, right? And so your development roadmap is still you're still on a roadmap to build the perfect system that you want, that you feel is based on insights. But is there anything on the roadmap? I think what would be cool if you scroll up a little bit. Is there anything that you can come back and say, hey, we won this quote with this carrier? That way when I'm giving it to my VA, they can there's data that says, based on these elements, net worth or address or wherever, these elements, 64% of your business is being won with auto owners, right? And so it's like it gives them the insight. So maybe, or even tells you like who to quote it with, because if you see that you're only winning at 3% with Progressive, just because they're checked, maybe you're like, well, I don't want them wasting their time with that one. Just like go to these 2 or 3 that we know we have high win rates with.
100%. Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things, and we talked about it early on, is data. So we are collecting a lot of data on the front end. We're actively going to be thinking through, and a lot of what you just said is something that is on our roadmap, to where, I mean, it was crazy to kind of going along that same path, but it was crazy to me the first time that I had a carrier come to me and say, you're quoting us too much. And what ended up,
was it low win rates or?
Exactly. So we pretty much, if this was Mathis's live account, you would see a button that says all PL rating carriers, just to make it simple. And so we, on home and auto, if we're requesting a quote, we're sending it to everybody. And what this carrier was upset with was the fact that we're quoting them every single time in our rater, but they're just not competitive. And
I would have said, I would have been snarky. See, I'm never like, this is never me. I would never do this, but I know other people might do this. I would say, well, I'm upset that you don't have better X, Y, and Z. Like, why, don't be mad at me. Be mad at your actuaries, or be mad at whoever determines the rates at your company.
Yeah, that was pretty much the path I took on that one. But yeah, it just blew my mind. So all that to say, yes, we want to figure out. We would love. Right now, it's called review and send, but there's mostly just, hey, send. Our vision for this page is to do a lot of the front end underwriting with the data that we have, giving you underwriting alerts, giving you suggestions. Not full, like people say AI and things like that, but basically taking a lot of the guesswork out of it based on certain criteria.
Yeah.
And that way, even with your VA, so most VA companies, they'll charge per quote. You'll agree to a certain, so that way you're not sending them to carriers and quoting it where it's ineligible because of the age of the roof or something like that. That way you just pay for a quote that's not acceptable. That way, one, you're profiting more on the quoting piece of it, but that way you can get to, and this is one of the reasons in that quote earlier from Rob, he was talking about the ability to scale. The quicker you can get your VA partner to understand and get you through the quoting process, the quicker you'll feel comfortable, but even more so, the quicker you'll be able to hand off more of those small tasks to your VAs. Everybody, not everybody, a lot of people, when they have frustrations or have failures, or it takes longer than they're expecting to get them through the quoting process, the data entry process, it will get to the point where they start getting, the frustration will keep them from doing other things that VAs need to be doing in your agency.
Yeah. This is really great. Is there, do you find that certain and I don't need you to, I mean, this is an impromptu question, but do you find that there are certain VA companies that tend to do better with this type of stuff than others? Or do you have suggestions or recommendations? That if you don't, that's fun. I don't want you to feel like you have to be put on the spot
No.
there. I'll take the heat on that. But do you feel like there are certain companies that, hey, like these, like the people at these companies already are very familiar with this. They know how to
Yeah.
deal with this.
Yeah, so Mappus, we use Marblebox for our data entry. We actually also utilize Agency VA for some of our work as well. We just actually, I think it posted automatically while we were on this call. We just announced a strategic partnership with Viva VA, which with Rob Lopez. Him and I had a call a couple of weeks ago and kind of walked him through the system. And he had one of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard about RiskAdvisor, calling it next level badassery. And so those three definitely have seen it before. We've had great success. Vonda Copeland was actually our first agency that ever went live on it. She has a direct hire VA that she has, and one of the great things that didn't happen was I didn't really get a ton of I didn't get a ton of feedback, which means I wasn't getting bad feedback. That there was a process of onboarding. They were able to jump right on it, and it made sense to them, and they were able to hit the ground running.
I know people are going to ask about it, so I'll ask about it as well. Roadmap for commercial stuff.
Yeah, so there is a lot of people who do great things when it comes to the commercial industry, and the thought is there for some small commercial, especially with you've got the questions about businesses and nonprofits and things like that. Our heart and vision is to empower the personal lines agent. I think the personal lines agent is the most attacked by the direct consumer carriers.
Sure.
You made a post about a company that just got a bunch of money to basically.
I knew I was throwing I did that on LinkedIn, and I threw a punch in a crowded room. I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, but they're basically paying a lot of money to say that the agent's not important, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And we may get into the commercial world down the road, but we want to give every single resource that we can to personal lines agents.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So tell me, if people are wondering, what do they do next?
Yeah, so here, I should have had it pulled up already, but we've got a landing page for our friends over at Better Agency. But
and I could throw this in the chat too. So you go ahead and keep talking.
Perfect. So you can go here and you can either request a demo or shoot me an email if you've seen enough. But go to this page and it kind of gives you a little bit more information, allows you to request that demo that I mentioned, talks about some of our direct integrations, the Zapier integration, obviously. Got this fun little calculator showing you how much money you can save depending on how much you're quoting. And then we also got some exclusive pricing for our friends over at Better Agency. Basically, each payment plan is $30 off a month. So the $69, $169, $269 based off of the user amount of users. And once you move up from the light to the growth, you get that Easy Links Radar add-on and the property data lookup.
Very cool. I put a link here in the chat on YouTube. So if you guys want to go ahead and grab that, take advantage of that. So it's 1 to 2 users, and so the only difference is the number of users and the Easy Links integration. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. So, I mean, this is great. I mean, who who in your mind is this really kind of a should really be considering this if it hasn't been made aware to them yet? Like, who, personal lines agent? Is it anybody writing standard lines to admit it? Anywhere in between, or who in your mind is it? People with VAs? I'm sure I would make the argument that this works for people without VAs too. But
Yep.
who is this really going to be perfect for?
Yeah, so it's funny when we first started building this, I always had this vision of a couple years down the road. You look at a heat map of the United States of where all our users are, a ton of coastal agencies, all throughout Florida, and so on and so on these higher risk areas. And then the first person who adopted it was again Vonda Copeland out in Kansas, the exact opposite of what we were kind of thinking there. And all that to say, if you're already using a virtual assistant, it's a no-brainer. If you're thinking about using a virtual assistant, then it's even more valuable because you don't have that process already in place. But for those who are not using a virtual assistant, when you look at it, the fact, and I know this is something that you talk a lot about, but you look at $169 a month, and even if you cross sell an extra 2 umbrella policies a month, then your commission is going to pay for this system.
I'll
And,
do one better for you. Let's say you don't sell any extra policies, but you sell the exact same amount of policies you're selling right now. But instead, you're not having to jump on an hour-long phone call with your virtual assistant every single week, trying to
yep,
go over all the stuff. Right? Your time is worth more than that. Like, it's just
yep,
worth more than that. And so
100%.
you should
But
sell more because you're going to be more of an advisor. But also the amount of time that you're going to have to the time that you don't have to spend going over corrections, going over questions, going over coaching moments, all the above with a virtual assistant or any producer really is going to be just as valuable.
I was about to say, as much as the virtual assistant, but also newer producers. It giving the tools to where you are watching over the new producer's shoulder without actually having to watch over the producer, knowing
Yeah,
that they're asking the questions.
and two, I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but also, I mean, what's 169 times 12? I mean, the quick math there. Where's that? I went to public school, so I think what's that?
2028, I
That
think.
$2,000,
Yeah.
right? So talk about other things you got already in time savings. I imagine, well, looking at the questions on those forms, those are going to be things that if you're ever brought into a court of law and you have to defend yourself, just look at that as your look at it. And this is not the correct technical term, but how I think about it. Think about that umbrella for your E&O. Like,
Yep.
it's a couple $100 more a year for E&O coverage protection. Just making sure that if someone says, what's this as? You need to have a process that's consistent for your E&O. And asking those questions, getting answers to those things is going to be what could likely save you from getting your rear end kicked in by a judge in an E&O claim. So I think that
What
it's risk mitigation that you should be looking at.
What's funny, you asked me before we went live, is there any question or any upcoming announcements or anything like that, but that you didn't want to mention, and I don't care that you mentioned it. It's just funny that we had that conversation. We're actually having a call with who's become the IOA go-to E&O expert for
Nice.
agencies, Zach Hirsch, on Thursday to talk about just that and talk about how one of the first things that you ever experience in an E&O claim is if you say, "Hey, I know that we asked this question," and they ask how, because I do it every single time.
Yeah.
And with RiskAdvisor,
Show me.
giving you
Yeah.
exactly. So that's
Yeah.
funny
I
that you
mean,
brought that up.
yeah. It's going to save you time. You're going to probably write more business because of it, and it's going to help protect you in the event of an E&O loss.
Yep.
So, as wise insurance advisors, it would be highly advisable that you protect yourself at all costs. And if it costs you $150 a year to do, or a month to do, $160 a year to do, or $70 a month to do it, that's worth it. Just do it. So that's not an investment. That's just like common sense. That's just wisdom, I think. So,
Yep. Love
well,
it.
cool, man. Any last words? I know we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I want to appreciate everybody for sticking on. Thank you so much. If you have questions, just go ahead and put them down in the comments, and myself or David will. If there are questions for David, I'll route them over to him. And But any last questions or thoughts that you have for anybody as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean the last piece that just kind of wanted to talk really quick about is you talked about the time savings of just doing it the right way the first time, but what if you're on Easy Links, being able to put the information in both Better Agency and Easy Links at the same time without duplicate entry is huge. But whether you're in a different system or Zapier or whatever it might be, getting this as the first point of contact with that data gets you a position or a place to organize it extremely well to anywhere and everywhere that you need to be. And we're just going to continue. It's so important to us with being independent agents to get rid of that duplicate entry as much as we can. So that's something that is always a priority and will continue to be. And we're just really excited also real quick to be at Better Conference next month. So we're looking forward to hanging out there and getting to see a lot of y'all in person.
That'll be a lot of fun. Look forward to it. If you're gonna be at the Better Conference, make sure you take advantage of David's wisdom, but also his generosity as he buys you lunch or coffee or whatever. So,
Sounds good.
all right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys again. Make sure you register for Agency Success Live. Tune in every single week as we drop content on the channel. We'll see you guys again on the next video. You guys have a great day.